All right, so welcome everyone to this special edition of Dr. Tara Tuesdays. I am Dr. Tara. As always, I am so excited for the opportunity to connect with you all today around topics that impact our well-being, impact our health, and definitely impact relationships. We are talking today about parenting through the coronavirus, having a very honest and important conversation around understanding when our family is not only our greatest joy, but also can be triggering for us. I'm so excited to have Mr. Randy Green, who is we work together through Sage Wellness Group. He is a middle school administrator. He is a restorative justice expert, practices expert. And so this evening, we want you all to bring in your comments, your questions, your concerns, your experiences, because one of the things about what we're going through now with COVID-19 is that we are all experiencing this together. As always, within the Dr. Tara community, if this is your first time here, welcome. I want to welcome you to the Dr. Tara community. It's a safe place. If this is your first time, please feel free to shoot me a DM if you feel comfortable. Leave your email address in the comments. We want to connect with you. I will be sending out our first newsletter of 2020 next week with a special surprise. So please make sure you are on our mailing list. But now I want to jump right into the conversation and introduce Randy Green to the Dr. Tara community. So Randy, when we think about parenting through the coronavirus, you are a parent, you are an administrator, you are trained in this. Why do you think this is such an important conversation for us to have at this time? Why is it so important to you?
What makes it so important to me, first and foremost, is that we are all impacted because it caught us all off guard.
Right.
Just being honest, the last 2 days of school were open. I was actually out sick, so I didn't even really get to close out as I needed to prepare for this. But I think what we have to be mindful of is that we all are emotionally, mentally, and many of us financially impacted by this that was just dropped in our lap. And one of the first things that come to mind for me when we think about our families and being a parent is trauma, depression during this time, which can skyrocket, and even anxiety. So I think it's important that we have these conversations to talk about how we can support each other.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I want to ask to you, and then always, if you're watching tonight, please feel free to put it in the comments. What are some common challenges that you all are hearing from an administrative standpoint, because you're in the educational system as well? What are some common challenges that people can expect to experience or have been experiencing that you've seen during this time?
Really trying to put the next steps in place and really trying to determine what distance learning will look like, because we do understand that, yeah, families are home, but they have other obligations. Everyone's home together. Many students are assisting with siblings. We're trying to make sure everyone has access to technology. So it's a lot of challenges that we are still working to try to overcome. My staff will be training for the next week with PG County Schools to try to put some things in place, and hopefully we'll be ready to rock and roll by April the 14th.
Well, that's great. I know for me as a parent, homeschooling has been one of my challenges, and I don't know if I just want to. I want to be 100% honest. Like, it has gone by my mood, right? It has gone by, my anxiety level around what things are happening and what things are not going to happen. It's gone by my children's anxiety level. I know I shared a post where I asked my son, who's a teenager, and he was like, "Ma, the world is already stressed out. We don't want to add to that stress." And I know for me, and if you're a parent, again, please feel free to put it in the comments, because I want to walk us through some of the common challenges that we're seeing. I know for me with my daughter is 7, and she is really big on structure and routines. And so days 1 and 2, she was great. It was a vacation for her. Day 3, she broke down. She's like, "I'm ready to go back to school. I miss my classmates. I miss my teacher." And I ended up emailing her teacher, and I was like, can you please send me your schedule? Just because I wanted to bring in bits and pieces. I was trying to sing the morning song. She was getting frustrated at me for not singing, for not singing it right. And so I think for me, one of the biggest challenges that I have experienced, and Christine, I'm going to come to your comment too, has been, how do you create, and I hate the term the new normal, because what I keep emphasizing is that so many of us are having normal responses to an abnormal occurrence. This is not normal, right? And I want to say that. But in this abnormality, how do we create structure? And going to Christina's comment too, how do we support multiple children in a home that are different style learners? I think that's an excellent question.
That's a great question. Well, first, let's understand that too, as parents, we want to support our children. but you can't do it all. And
Mhm.
that's okay. It's okay to say that I can't do it all. The first thing is really look to the school and see how many resources you can get as possible from the school. Go to your school website. They usually have curriculum aids and resources available on all school district websites. I know you're not a teacher, but it's still some things that it may be able to assist you. Reach out
Mhm.
to the teachers, myself, my staff. For our school district, we are available during school hours still to help and support parents. We are using things such as Google Sites, Zoom, whatever we can to get in touch with students and parents, but reach out for that help and support. But to go back to your original point, is really setting the schedule, but
Mhm.
understanding that our students are home. This is a major change for them that was just dropped in their lap. We
Mhm.
are adults and we're struggling with this. So imagine how a child feels with so much unknown in the air and them being away from their peers, which is a major blow, which takes away that social emotional piece because that creates that fear and that anxiety for them not knowing what's going to be next. So create that schedule. Look at what you can do as a parent. So one thing we're going to focus on is not overloading students with work. And I think some schools that jumped out there early, not saying anything bad about anybody, but they threw a lot of work out there. And it overloaded parents, it overloaded the kids, and it's just too much. So really looking at the essentials we can try to do to really move our students forward, having a schedule, having a plan in place, contact the school, find out what aids and supports that they can give you as parents, because there are a lot of resources out there. And most districts do have a parent site that you can go to get support.
I know one of the things that that came up for me that I'm seeing on social media and like memes and stuff is like everybody's over homeschooling, right? So I know I've dropped out of homeschooling several times. I have quit homeschooling several times over the past few weeks, and I believe in transparency. Like I have skills, I know mindfulness, I know this, I know that, and I'm like, you know what? Let's just chill out for today. But one of the things that Christina said that I want us to be mindful of as parents is even if I'm not an expert in being a quote unquote teacher, I am an expert of my child, right? And her comment says, she was able to look at her son's behavior, which showed her that he was feeling out of control. Like, don't doubt the expertise that you do have. I may not be an expert teacher, but I'm still the expert of my child. I'm still the expert of my family. And so if I don't know how to teach this lesson, how do I fall back on the expertise, like you said, that I do have, or the structure that I do have in order to create a routine around whatever I can as possible? Mhm.
And I really I think in schools, before you can get to the learning, there has to be a connection. Yes, this is your child, but we must first understand that we're forcing kids to learn in an environment they're not used to learning in, which is home. Nothing wrong with that. But
Mhm.
that uncertainty around that. So first, let's have that talk with our kids about what's going on. Let's assure them that things are going to get better eventually.
Mhm.
Let's bring that comfort. Let's make sure that we unplug also. Cut some of that fear off. We know that the role of media is to sensationalize. So let's make sure that our kids all have social media, just like we're seeing the memes and we're laughing. There are also a million articles out there with all these theories, and it's just feeding to everyone's anxiety. So with our children, let's take a step back. If you see them to a point that you realize they don't need to go forward, take that step back. Let's have that a talk with them as parents and really comfort them and allow them to express how they're feeling. That's very important to have that during this time. Social emotional learning right now, to me, is really more critical than really getting to the academics.
Can you break that down for the Dr. Star community, Randy? When you talk about social emotional learning and social emotional connection, what do you mean? Like, can you explain that to us as parents?
Okay. So we're talking about social emotional learning. We're talking about that child's well-being, their social ability. How are they mentally and emotionally feeling at that time? A child that does not feel safe cannot learn. So we're thinking about, I know Tara, you're the expert on this, about the brain. When that child does not feel safe, does not have that connection, they don't have the ability to learn. And that's why you're seeing so many parents struggling at home. It's not so much of the parent, is that the child really, that feeling of anxiety, what's going on, why can't I go to school, why can't I see my friends, what's going to happen, my parents are not going to work. All those things for that child in their mind right now is superseding education. I'm not saying academics is not important, but no one can learn under those type of circumstances. So we have to really, as parents, support our child emotionally, allow them to express how they feel. Let's try to find things we can do in the home, family time, quiet time, cut everything off. Let's sit and talk. How are you feeling? What are your thoughts about what's going on? What are you hearing? So let's address that also. What are some of the things you're hearing? So as parents, maybe we can dispel some of those false perceptions or theories that are floating out there because it's an overload. Our children have access to everything. And yes, some of the memes are funny, but at the same time, it's the reality of what we're living in. So we really have to connect with our children emotionally. Just to add to your point, Tara, we're now home with our children all day. We're not used to that. You see your child getting home 4 or 5 in the evening. You get home 4 or 5. We eat dinner, go to bed. I see you tomorrow. But now, wake up, you're here. Take you're here.
Now you're here.
We ate all the quarantine food this week. Everything is gone. So, we're really trying to all live in this moment before our kids. They really need that emotional support. And that's what we deal with in school, because we talk about trauma. For a lot of people, this really opened up that door. Right now, we're surrounded with illness. We're surrounded with death. We're surrounded with uncertainty. For a lot of people who grew up in these type of environments, that can be a trigger. And not just children, but for adults also.
So when you say that, one of the things that it also makes me think about too is so many parents are focused on creating structure and routine. Can you speak to the importance of flexibility and meeting our child's emotional needs, and how those emotional needs may manifest themselves as behaviors which can be triggering for parents?
Definitely. So, but I always believe it has to be a form of behavior specialist. Behavior is communication. So we always say kids are, they're acting out. No, it's a form of they're communicating something to you. So while you're home with your kid and you figure things are going wrong, or they're rejecting, or they're reacting, that's them communicating something. So the question is, what exactly are they trying to communicate in that moment? Having a schedule is great. That's a great way to start your day. But within that schedule, you need to build in certain things. What about a morning? Something they do in elementary school that I love to this day. I'm in middle school, but they're still babies. Morning meeting. Let's get up in the morning. Let's talk about our day. What are we going to do? That's one thing we do in schools, is that we normally have our agendas posted. This is what we're going to work on today. This is what we're going to work through. This is the time we're going to do X, Y, and Z. A lot of time, what I like to call adultism, we feel we just give kids things and they're just to do it. This is the schedule because I said so. I pay the bills. This is what we're going to do. That doesn't always work. I would say building breaks. We all break. Building quiet time. We just need to be quiet. Whether you want to meditate, whether you want to read a book, just build 30 minutes to an hour of quiet time. Unplug social media. Unplug from the TV. Cut the TV off, because it's insane right now. Cut it off, building those times. But I also want to really emphasize to parents, make time for yourself, because this is a lot on you as well, because you're trying to hold this together as well, and try to fight it on every end. I'm a parent, my job, this, that, you're worried. So building some time for yourself throughout the day, where you maybe can go in the room and maybe be quiet, maybe read a book, maybe talk to your friends, just something that can help you with your self-care. So I think make that schedule as parents. It's great to have an academic schedule, but also, what about family time? Also, what about that time I need for myself to myself? What about that quiet time? So build those things in. But also, when you talk about flexibility, you got to see how your child is responding. Like you said, Tara, as parents, you are the expert for your child. And if you see your child is breaking down in that moment, it may be time to stop that activity. Because once again, this is a lot.
And it's okay to stop it before you get frustrated, right? Like, so one of the memes that I saw, and I'm going to play with it, but I'm going to make it serious again, was someone said, if I have to say one more time, if Johnny had 5 apples, right? Like, that's a classic parent struggle with homework, or classic parent, I don't get you to understand. And so understanding that I can give myself permission to stop, I can give myself permission to pivot in an activity, mid-activity. If I'm noticing that connection is being ruptured, if I'm noticing that connection is not there, if I'm noticing that I'm being triggered and my trigger is triggering my child. One of the things too that I think sometimes as parents that we take for granted is that we can also be triggering for our children, right? So homework time can be anxiety provoking for me, because I know I may not understand how to do Common Core, or carry this one, or understand where you are. But at the same time, again, because this is a relationship, homework time can be triggering for my child because they have to work with me, right? And I think we have to allow our children that space too. I want to go to Christina's comment too. So when we think about all of the different hacks that we are being called to wear immediately, what advice do you have for parents trying to balance working from home, parenting from home, and homeschooling too? Can you speak more about like that taking the break for us?
It's a lot because I'm in the same boat as well with my kids. I'm still working. I still got to be online. I'm still trying to work things out as well. It can be overwhelming, and it's okay if you have to just stop, take a breath. It's okay. We're all dealing with this. As far as your children, once again, as I always say for them, I just try to be that emotional support for them. But as parents, you know your triggers by now.
Mm-hmm.
I give a prime example. Smacking on food is my number one trigger in the world. It's smacking on food. I got to either leave the room or put that food up. It's one or the other. One of the two is going to happen. One of the two is going to happen when you think about that. But as I said, with parents, set a time for everything. That schedule is very important. You have work deadlines. With your children, if you're trying to get work done while they have things, if they can't get to something while you're busy, just say, hey, we'll come back to that later on. The fortunate thing is that because we're on a stay-at-home order, we have nothing but time. So if you can't do it at 9:30 in the morning because you have to do a phone conference for your job, we can come back to it later on in the afternoon. But also, just as important as having that schedule is having those boundaries too. Hey, listen, babies, right now, Dad has to go get on this call. I do this most of the day today. I'll be on this call for a few hours. Once I'm finished, I'll be able to assist you with whatever you need me to do. As I said, right now, time is of the essence for all of us because we want to stay at home order with that piece. But just really try to have that schedule. And let's talk about boundaries. Once again, we sit down with our children and we talk about moving forward. And I want to call it temporary normalcy. I don't like the new normalcy because I know that at some point this is going to change. I don't want to accept that this is going to be forever. So for this temporary moment, this is how we're going to have to operate and address everybody's needs.
And I think, and stand on that boundary piece too, understanding that is also learning, like going into that social emotional piece, me setting a boundary with my child and then also set it and respecting their boundary too, is teaching, right? I'm still teaching my child navigation. I'm teaching them relationships. Those are skills that they are going to be able to utilize throughout the rest of their life, right? So learning, one of the things that we can, I guess, reassure ourselves that learning doesn't have to be pen to paper or pencil to paper. It is relational, right? So much of learning is relational. Our work is teaching relational patterns and habits to adults, and so understanding that learning is always occurring. And I love, Chima, your comment about stop, take a breath, and balance, giving ourselves permission to step up, and how that also teaches our children about self-care, right? So I can say, you know what, guys, and owning our experience, our emotional experience. I'm feeling frustrated, and I don't want to bring that into this conversation. I don't want to bring that into I'm going to walk away and come back too, right? So I don't have to build up that frustration too. I want to talk discipline. Go ahead, Brandon.
Owning that emotion. I think it's important that we do that as parents because remember, also in this time, we are also modeling how to social emotional deal with this situation. So one thing we call it in restorative practice effective statements, and that's putting that emotion on it. Sometimes it's okay to say to your child, right now I'm frustrated with this situation. I'm frustrated with work. It's okay to say that to them. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you incompetent. It's just okay to express that emotion because sometimes children need to learn how to take emotions and how to cope with them.
And it also stops projection, right? So sometimes I may be frustrated. And one of the things that I want to acknowledge too is that so many people, so many parents are scared, right? We are uncertain. And as parents, somehow we've been taught that we can't be scared and be parents, right? Like I have to know all the answers. I have to be able to fix everything. And so what happens is that when I leave my fear unchecked, I can project that frustration onto my child who is undeserving or whose behavior hasn't really warranted. But because I've already been anxious, I've already been frustrated, I've already been tired, I've already been feeling all of these things, and the child does a behavior and I automatically snap and I'm projecting that frustration onto them. When I'm able to, like you said, model that behavior, I can own my emotion, and I'm also giving permission for my child to own their emotional experience around this as well. And that leads me to discipline, right? So, one of the things that I, just being in this field, we know discipline runs a gamut. And the reality of it is that for most of us as parents, this is the most amount of time you have spent with your child in a long time. I was joking with a girlfriend of mine. I said, some of us haven't been around our children since we were on maternity leave for the amount of time that we're on, right? And, you know, and I say that in jest, but I have to understand that I'm learning aspects of my child that may have only been in school, that the teacher may have only known about, or that this person may have only learned about. Because like you said, I see them in the morning, get them on the bus, get them to the school building. I have an 8-hour break, sometimes 10-hour break if they're in extracurricular activities. I'm picking them up, dinner, bed, bath time, books, you're done. And so now I have you for this amount of time, and I'm noticing that I'm being triggered. So when you talk about discipline, it always looks different to me when parents are stressed, frustrated, or scared. What words of advice can you provide for parents in this area? And I want you to take your time with it, Randy. Just flow.
Right here. So first, shout out to my educators. I know now, we say parents, y'all see what we're talking about.
Some Christina said she would take y'all all on vacation.
Oh, he doesn't do that. Yeah, okay, now you get to see. No, but seriously, first, I want parents to understand one thing. Discipline and punishment are two different things. So I think sometimes as parents, we punish children. Punishment is about inflicting pain on a consequence. Discipline is about teaching the correct behavior. So let's make sure we first understand it. And I think when we come from a place of frustration, we go straight to the punishment. Hey, you need to know, don't do this again. But let's be very honest. Punishment doesn't change behavior. Now, what I'm going to do is next time I make sure I don't get caught. That's what that teaches me. Whereas in discipline, you want to change and correct that behavior. One thing I would suggest with parents as we get into the discipline piece is sit down with your children at home and let's make up some norms or some expectations of how this is going to work for everyone to get what they need. One thing I always tell my classroom teachers is that you should never establish your class rules until the students come back to school, because that's what you need, but what do they need? So as parents, we have to understand too, what do my children need to be successful in this period of time or moment, or however long this may last? And just as I can express to them, this is what I need. But this one is really about teaching and taking time to really give that lesson. Sometimes people feel that there's no pain or no crying, then it can't be discipline, but that's not true. I'll tell you a quick story. My son was a little bit younger. We were always going to the store. He would put his hands in his pocket, and I would say, take your hands out your pocket. Go in the next store, he would do it again. Boy, didn't I tell you to take them hands out your pocket? Driving myself crazy. Then it finally clicked to me that he doesn't know why I'm telling him to do that. That's why he continued to do it. So I pulled him to the side and I said, hey, when you go in the store and you have on a big coat sometimes and you have your hands in your pocket, people may think that you're stealing. So it's not a good idea to put your hands in your pocket. So let's be honest, the young man of color. So once I explained that to him, he stopped doing it. So my point is, sometimes as parents, we overwork ourselves in the discipline area. You have to sit down, you have to have that conversation with your child. It doesn't mean there can't be a consequence, but the consequence can't come first before the understanding. And discipline should really be about understanding. This is what you did, this is why it's wrong. And this is what's going to happen because of that. Because there are consequences in life. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to kick your child out of the family, but what I'm saying is that you want to take that time to really sit down and talk and teach. But please understand, too, that right now, a lot of children are operating from a place of fear. Now, I'm not saying excuse every behavior and everything that's going on, but what I'm saying is that discipline is about love. Discipline comes from a place of love. And yeah, I'm frustrated. You may have to say, hey, right now, Tara, need you go in your room. Right. We're going to talk in 30 minutes or an hour when you've had time to cool down and process. We're not perfect as parents, but you have to understand, too, what your triggers are. And by now, as adults, we know what our triggers are. And we're dealing with fear as well, but we have to understand that punishment, that's not the place to come from. It's really from that discipline, from love, from teaching, from understanding. Let's talk about why that was wrong. Let's understand what's going on.
Can you please run Baltimore schools? You get it. One of the things that I love that you said that I want us to focus on when you talk about punishment and how it teaches children to not get caught. Right. So a lot of times we think that is just about behavior. Right. It teaches me not to get caught taking an extra cookie that you bought during quarantine time. Right. It teaches me not to get caught hitting my sister. What it also teaches our children, and this is that social emotional piece, is it teaches me not to show my emotions to you. Right. because it teaches me that you're not a safe person for me to be with. And I think sometimes as parents, we feel like, my child can come to me with anything. They can come to me when they're scared, upset, afraid, or lonely. But how do I respond when they're scared, upset, afraid, or lonely? Right? If I'm responding out of a place of, boy, stop crying, or girl, get yourself together, or do that, I'm teaching them that they can't bring this emotion to me. And like you said, because we're all experiencing this together, then part of my work is understanding that not only am I holding the space for myself in this moment, but I'm also holding the space and what we call being with my child as they experience this emotion without feeling like I have to minimize it, right? Oh, you don't know that? You should know that by now, right? Without feeling like I have to distract, right? Or without feeling like I have to overpower, because when I think for me, and this is my own check as a parent, when I feel myself getting into a power struggle, I know, you know what? I need to back off because I don't have to assert I don't have to assert myself as your mother. It's clear that I'm your mother, right? So for me, the moment I feel like I want to say I'm your mother, I'm like, you know what? I need to take a step back because I'm losing a power struggle right here. And so I need to bring it in because this is a relationship, and if I truly want you to come to me when you're feeling scared or upset or afraid or frustrated or angry, even if those emotions are directed at me, then I have to be able to be with you when you experience them, even if the behavior has to be corrected. The emotion can stay, even if the behavior has to be corrected.
And add to that, that's when the thing. We sometimes the children don't have a voice and don't have an opinion. My son is 13, and I always tell him, I want you to express how you feel, but you need to be respectful in how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
I need you to tell me, I feel that was wrong that you did. I teach them to be able to communicate that way because that's a life skill that they need to go out into the world. And I think sometimes too, as parents, we have to be mindful when we talk about social emotional, is that when you lead with corporal punishment, and we all know what corporal punishment is that also builds aggression. Mm-hmm. Now, it may not come out on you, but it's going to come out on somebody. It might be a sibling. It might be, it's going to come out somewhere else when we lead with that corporal piece. I'm not trying to tell anybody how to parent. I'm just pointing out the facts. That's all.
Yes, it is. I want to go to Christina's comment, and then Nicole, I see your comment. I'm going to come to it next. What can we do to support children in homes that are not safe and we know they have unhealthy surroundings? Do you have any advice around that?
That's a tough one because that's something that the county exec did. Our county exec did touch on last week during their press conference, the rise in child incident reports as well as domestic violence. Definitely just make sure they know who they can contact for support, their local authorities, etc. It's just that's really a tough question to answer in this stay at home all the time. But if you know and you are aware that something happened, you can still make a CPS report.
And you can be anonymous too.
Yeah, you definitely can be anonymous, but you still can make a report.
Nicole said, how should we deal with older children who will miss milestones like prom and graduation? How do we help them unpack those feelings? That's
a tough one. I know here in Maryland, we haven't made any final decision yet for the rest of the school year. I think, the best thing we can do is let them express their emotion and feelings. I think in this time, we assume that students or children feel a certain way, but let's let them tell us how I feel. Just create that opportunity in that space. How about sit down and talk, say, what are you thinking? How do you feel? What can we maybe do to supplement that for you? Right. Is that something that maybe we can do as a community? I mean, it doesn't, just because it's not through the school don't mean we can't come together as a community, as parents, and do an event for children. So it's still just try to be creative and think about it, but allow them to be able to come and talk to you and express, their feelings. A lot of times, please be mindful as adult. We lead. I know you feel sorry. I know you're upset. No, let them tell you. Because they might not be. They might be okay. They might be like, I'm glad because I ain't got the pressure of finding a tuxedo. And they might be like, yo, I'm mad. I'm not going to be able to post a picture on Instagram. I'm not going to be able to, So really just really create that safe space where they can sit and just be able to talk to you and express it. Also, too, journaling is great this time. We have nothing but time throughout our day, just writing down your thoughts and feelings. If you build in time in your schedule to be able to journal your thoughts and emotions, that is also a great way of coping.
Also, too, and I want to add that when you talk about allowing them to process, Nicole, I want to speak about loss, right? This is a loss. Like we are all, so part of trauma work is understanding the loss that comes with that. And so understanding where our children may be in the stages of grief and loss, and I want to just run through them really quickly. So the first stage is in denial, right? I'm in denial that something is happening. That's where some children are, right? I'm still going to go back. We're still going to be, we don't know. And I think because things keep evolving daily, every day it's like you have this heightened awareness and you're just kind of waiting to see what happened. And then, then you kind of figure out what happened and then you regroup again, right? And so denial, and then it's anger. Who am I angry with? I'm angry at everybody who won't stay home. I'm angry at people who do stay home. I'm just angry. And then you get into bargaining, if then thinking. So if this would have happened, then we could have it. If this would have happened, then we could have it. And one of the things that I always say is that when we notice that bargaining talk, that if then talk, changing it to something, and I use this all the time, that and yet, prom may be canceled for this school year, and yet, like Chima is saying, we can have a virtual party, or and yet we can, when this quarantine is over, we can think of creative ways, like Shamika said, to honor this celebration or this milestone, or who's in my village as a parent, right? What other parents can come and support me as we honor, this milestone or this celebration? Going into depression, that is a normal stage as well. Feeling like this should have happened, this didn't happen. And taking that in either internally or externally, and then finally acceptance. And like you said, Randy, starting from that place of where we put our child's feelings first, and understanding too that there are two separate processes happening, right? So it's my child's process from not experiencing this, but then also as a parent, I want it to be front and center at graduation, violating all the don't clap now rules as well, right? So we have to acknowledge, we want to be mindful not to project our grief and loss process on our children, and allow both of us to have our separate processes, and then come together and figure out a way to work through this, knowing that we're not the only ones in our community experiencing this. This is globally. So how do we come together within our community, or within our town, or within our village, or within our family, to still celebrate this as we need to?
Definitely.
Can you talk to us about, so one of the things that I love hearing you talk about is the restorative practices. Some parents are not familiar with this. So really, really quickly, can you break down what that means, what it is? But when we talk about restorative practices, the thing that I thought about with you, Randy, and it goes into that discipline piece too. So many of us fall into that, and you're going to break it down for us, so don't worry, that social discipline or relationship window. Can you talk to us about how we stay with our children during this process instead of doing that to, for, or not?
Gotcha. Just for the sake of time, in a nutshell, restorative practice.
I'm going to slow down. You take your time.
It's really about building relationships and connecting with people. That is the basic underlying premises of it, is how do I interact with other people? Because I am responsible for how I interact. Not so much what they do, but what I do. So we talk about the social discipline window. We believe people fall in one of three categories. If you are a two person, you lead punitively. You lead with punishment. Didn't I tell you to do that? I'm not going to train you. I'm not going to support you, but I expect you to be able to do it. And when you can't, I'm going to hammer you. That's how some of us parents sometimes. Let's be honest.
Say it one more time, Ray. Some of us didn't hear you. Some of us got hurt a little bit when you said that.
In a two household, I'm a survivor. Then you have your four. People who are four, they will do stuff for you. They're going to enable you to keep doing the things you're doing. They don't really want to address it, but they may over support you. They overcompensate. They make excuses for why things continue to happen. And then you have your not people who are not really just neglectful. They don't really want to deal with stuff. I'm not going to face it. I'm not going to deal with that right now. We'll deal with that tomorrow. I'm just not going to deal with that. So we either two, we're four, or we're not. And depending on the situation that we're in, we're all those people. Depending on, sometimes as a school leader, like, I'm not going to room 103. I've been down there 10 times, and I'm not going back down there. That's me being that not person. And then sometimes that punitive piece, it really comes out. Now that punitive piece really shows the most in parenting, because we get frustrated with our kids. We say something, we want them to do it. Plain and simple. That's the house I grew up in. Mom was for dinner. That's it. So you got one or two choices, either eat or not. That's all I got for you. So, so we really lead with that mindset. But when you talk about the with piece, with people are happier when you do things with them instead of 2 or 4. And that's what restorative practice is really talking about. So when I talked about discipline, we have to do discipline with children, with each other. It has to be with each. That's how we learn. When I sit down and talk about how what you did impacted me, or how what I did impacted you, that's really the tough part of discipline, is having to face what you've done. We think that, punishment and all that stuff, that's not hard, because you gave me an out. You told me go in my room because I took your money or I broke the TV. You gave me an out because I don't have to face you. But when I have to sit and have that conversation about how my behavior or my actions harmed you and what are the long-term effects of that, that's really tough to do. And that's what discipline is really about. And that's when you normally see the change of behavior, because a person has to understand their impact.
Mm-hmm.
So that with piece is really critical.
I want to say that because I'm going to go back to Chima's comment, because for some of us, this is a whole new concept. Discipline is being done together, right? So how do I notice, and Christina saying that accountability piece that comes with that with, how do I notice when I'm falling into a 2, which is that I'm doing things to you, I'm that punishment, you know what, these kids are driving me crazy, I'm not dealing with it, or I'm a 4, you know what, all these poor kids, let me just do all their homework for them. I'm gonna just do all the learning packets for them. How do I start to, and I want to go back to Christina's point, how do I hold myself accountable when I notice that I'm falling into one of these categories? And how do I as a parent get myself into that with, especially if I grew up in a 2 household, especially if a 2 household or a 4 household or a not household has been my way of life?
It's really tough to unlearn behaviors. As I said, I grew up in a 2 households. So earlier in my parenting career, that's how I led, because that's what I thought worked for me. But as I get old and I understand social emotional learning and trauma and all that, I realized it didn't work. It actually probably messed me up more than it needed to. As a person, as I went through life emotionally, it's really the key thing to understand where you are is accountability is about everyone. So if everyone is not included, then it's not accountability, it's punishment. Mm-hmm. So when you say, how do I know the difference? If you just punished your child for something they did, there's no discussion, there's no support, there's nothing, then you're being a 2 right now. If you're just doing the work for them, you're being a 4. That accountability piece is everyone coming together and working together. Remember I said about setting those norms or those rules of the family, because that's what we're going to go off, because that's how we're going to hold each other accountable. In this moment, what do everyone need to be where they need to be at or to feel supported? And we're going to refer back to that. So it's not a personal thing. This is what we agreed to as a family. But as a parent also, you still got to set your boundaries and rules as a parent. But behavior, it has to be taught. And a lot of people don't believe that, but we learn. You have to learn behaviors. Like you learn how to drive, you learn how to read. Behavior has to be taught. It has to be taught in a place where students can learn and be able to process, because we're preparing them from the real world. Punishment doesn't prepare you for the real world, because let's be honest, in the real world, does everyone get punished? No. We can definitively say no. Everyone does not get punished in the real world. But our children have to be able to cope and process through adversities as they move throughout life. And really, if you have adolescents, it's really even more critical now that you teach those skills, because they're getting closer and closer to becoming an adult.
Mm-hmm. And noticing too, I think for me too, Randy, noticing that when we experience our triggers, so just because, like, as we are the experts of our children, we know our children's behavior, like you said, that smacking is a trigger for me, right? So noticing what my triggers are and being proactive about getting in front of them, right? So one of the things that always is interesting to me is how many times parents have such an emotional reaction for behaviors they know are coming, right? Like, right? I know, I posted a video yesterday of me racing my son, but I was the only one running, right? I was the only one running. I was the only one racing. I'm not surprised. I know my child, right? I set myself up, right? And I use it as a joke, and we can take a more serious behavior too, but getting in front of that, because we're more likely to fall outside of that with category when I'm being triggered. And so one of the things that I love that you talk about is for us as parents, giving ourselves permission for us to take a time out instead of saying, you know what, you take a time out to my child, giving myself permission for me to take a time out because I've noticed my trigger and I'm becoming proactive. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Definitely. And look, give yourself a time every day anyway. If you're not the trigger. But
Randy went out for a second. Come back in and say what you just said.
You hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. I said take a time out every day, even if you're not being triggered, because you need that for your social emotional health as a parent. So please take that time out. But first thing is be honest about what your triggers are. And it's okay. So as a parent, have that talk with yourself. If it's not tonight, write them down. These are my triggers. This is what I notice about my kids that really send me over the edge. So when those moments come, I need to step away. Discipline doesn't have to be immediate because you don't want to do something, just fly off the handle and do something crazy because we all have that tendency. I know there's times I'm like, I shouldn't have did that. Or I shouldn't have said that. Now I got to come back and apologize. So it's okay to take a step back. Look, right now, need you to go in your room. I'm going to go in my room. When I had a moment to really come back together and cool down, we'll come back together and talk about what happened. But in order for behavior to change, the behavior itself has to be addressed. And when you're addressing that behavior, you're going to find out why is this behavior occurring. Because if you don't find out why the behavior is occurring, you're never going to be able to address it. What is the function of that behavior? So if my child is cursing and going off inside of the house, why are they doing that? What is the function of my child cursing? Oh, well, they're cursing because they're afraid. They're cursing because they're frustrated. So let me show you another way to really deal with that frustration. So really, as parents, we don't have to know everything. There are a lot of resources available. You have Dr. Tara as well to help you as a parent cope with some of these things. Because I said, as parents, we're always teaching. Our children are watching us. When you fly off the handle, you're teaching them when you have a problem, you should fly off the handle. But when I sit down and hold you accountable, I'm also teaching you to hold others accountable. More importantly, hold yourself accountable.
One of the things that Chima mentioned, and I want to bring this up too. So I always say we are people first, whatever else second, right? We are people first, parents second, professionals third, whatever else. And so when I find myself as a 2, a not, or a 4, what does it look like for me to come to my child and apologize? Like for some of us, that is also a foreign concept, right? You don't, again, social media brings so many of this to light for me. There was a question asked, how did your parents apologize to you? Come eat. I'm going to the store. You want something from the store, right? No apology was given. Didn't come eat, right? And so we want to do something different, right? We want to do something relational. And so for parents, when we notice that I'm getting frustrated and I'm saying, and my tone is off, how do I take that moment within myself to be intentional and apologize or repair that necessary relationship with my child?
Well, first stop, catch yourself, and you need to stop before you do more damage. And take a moment. Take a moment and just breathe. As you said, we're human. We are human. We all have emotions. There's nothing wrong with that. I always tell students as well as adults, anger is an emotion. There's nothing wrong with anger. It's how you respond to your anger that's the problem. So take a moment, walk away, take a breather, gather your thoughts, understand for yourself what you feel you did was wrong, and then go back to your child and have a conversation. It's okay to apologize. Look, I apologize a lot. Trust me, I am not perfect. But growing up in my household, I never got an apology till this day. So I understand the importance of really bringing that security to your kids, but also too, keep in mind that you're still modeling. So I'm coming back to you because I did you wrong. That's that restorative piece. Because when in that moment when I flew off the handle, I damaged our relationship. So now I'm going to come back to you and try to restore it because I'm going to apologize for what I did. Now, yes, I was wrong. I'm apologizing how I responded to you, but we still going to address your behavior because I'm still going to hold you accountable. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of times as parents, when we feel we wronged our child, we completely shift to something else. And I'm sorry, let's all just sit and eat ice cream. Well, no, hold up. You still watch TV. Yeah, I flew off the handle, but we need to talk about the plan to get this TV fixed.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, Randy, as we get ready to wrap up, what 3 pieces of advice do you have for parents? So we know in the state of Maryland, we're going at least until the end of April. Some people are tuning in from different states. States have been shut down schools have been shut down until June. Some schools have closed, for the rest of the school year. So in this temporary norm, what 3 pieces of advice can you leave with us as we navigate through this together with our children?
The first thing I would say is create a daily schedule, and make sure that schedule is flexible enough. Have times for self-care, have times for structure, have times for academics, but build that schedule so we all have something that we're working from. Because remember, you don't want your children waking up to uncertainty every day. Like today, we might do academics, we might watch movies, we might. So you want to have some type of structure in place. Two, sit down with your family and really develop those norms. I think that's very important in this
Can you
space.
give us some examples of that? Like what family norms might look like?
You may say, well, let's talk about how we treat each other. Number one, let's be honest. Let's be open. Let's be truthful with our emotions. Let's make sure we're respecting each other's spaces. Let's make sure, whatever time we set out, when dad is doing his work, we're not bothering dad during these hours, or just whenever people need socially, emotionally to be supportive. Let's be accountable to each other. If someone does something wrong, let's be accountable enough to call them out. Well, not call them out. That sounds kind of negative, but to address it with them. So it's important to have some type of norms or something to be able to work from. Just kind of like how you have classroom rules when we walk to a classroom, but just something that can help the house and things run smooth. Because I know a lot of people have multiple children in their home that they're working with.
And one of the things I want to add to that too, so whenever we create group norms as we do our trainings, I always ask people, it's in response to the statement, in order to feel safe, I need, right? And one of the things, I just finished the webinar for another group before we came on, that I always talk about is we can create safe spaces in our homes, right? And safety for me, I break it down very simply, is emotional and physical. And so in order for me to feel safe, in order for me to participate fully, this is what I need from this family group right here, right? And so, and being honest about what those needs are too. And, taking examples, even a small, I need so-and-so to not play with my toys today, and honor that, right? Today you get to play with your toys, because again, it's a loss that has to happen too. So those norms can come into place too. And then your next takeaway?
The last one will be unplug. Cut the TV off. Loading your brain is COVID, everything, everywhere is 5,000 sources. Look, I get it. I understand people want to be in the know, but please make sure you are going to reputable sources, CDC, etc. Remember, the news, the media job is to sensationalize, so it's overhyped fear. I'm not saying don't take it serious, but in unplugging the TV, please sit down and talk to your children about this situation, what's going on, and please talk to them about reputable facts about what's going on. Because once again, our children have phones, they have iPads, the people are sharing memes, people are sharing articles, and a lot of that stuff is just theories or people being super woke. It's a lot going on right now. So please unplug and sit down and talk. If you don't do anything starting tomorrow, talk to your children about what's going on and how they feel, and really give them some real reputable fact. Even if you pull up the CDC site right there while you all together as a family and just talk about it and walk through it. Because I think that's something a lot of families have not done yet. They're just trying to just work in, and we're just moving forward like it's going to go away. But really have that talk with your children.
I love that. And I want to bring up Tima's point, because she brought in a comment right before you started your 3 points, talking about the frustration she's realizing was her own anger with this transition. I think that's such a transparent comment for us as parents to recognize. Part of self-care is knowing that our children are not the recipients of our own frustration and anger, right? Like we have the responsibility to find our village that we can share that with, because sometimes they get so caught up in trying to manage our emotions that they forget, or they put their own emotional needs to the back burner because they have to make sure that mom or dad is okay. And so we can take some responsibility. I love what you said about like that self-care piece for ourselves, in finding an outlet to manage our own emotions. Did you want to speak to that at all?
Yeah, definitely. Also, two parents, have your village. You need to have your village as well of people you can call. Hey, I may call Friday tonight at 11 o'clock. Look, I'm having a moment because I just, it's all getting to me. Look, remember, we are all human. We are all new to this. No one knows what's going to happen today, tomorrow, or next month. We're all going through this together. Not having the answers, being afraid, being mad, being upset. Those are emotions. Those are natural emotions, and it is okay. It's okay, but please have your village, have your support system in place. Take a deep breath, get up, meditate, just take a deep breath, and we're going to all get through this. Please understand we don't have all the answers. I'm sorry.
No, we don't, and we don't have to. We can, we're finding out together. So, Andy, thank you so much. This has been so helpful for me. I have been like taking little notes and putting things into play, because again, like we are people, again, before we are parents. I know that you are, and Christina, yes, I love your comment. Professional counseling is great as well. So many people are doing telehealth work, understanding that this is a traumatic experience for people, especially if I'm a parent who already experiences anxiety or depression too. And so really tapping into our own mental health needs to fill our own cup before we can meet the needs of our children. I know that
also most school districts have their school psychologists as well as their school counselors available. So if you need to, please reach out for support. If your child needs support, please reach out to the school. Maybe you can schedule a time for them to be able to speak. Like I said, the best thing about this moment is that we have technology. So maybe they can set up a Google, FaceTime or Zoom meeting with their child to help them cope through this process. So although schools are closed, there are still a lot of resources available to be able to support parents.
Thank you, Randy. So thank you so much. I know you are open to people reaching out to you. Can you share how their best way to reach you if they should have any other questions or resources that they want to get?
Trying to think, you can reach me on Twitter at @IM_Mr. Green, or you can email me at rangreen06@gmail.com. I'll say that again, RAN Green 06@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter at IM_Mr. Green. Please
contact me. IM_Mr. Green. We will tweet you. Randy, help. I'm in a 2 category. So please reach out to Randy. He is wonderful. I'm so glad to have him as a part of the Sage Wellness Group team. He has been a valuable resource to our company. Thank you so much, Randy, for your expertise that you brought in tonight. Again, if you are new to the Dr. Tara community, we want to stay connected with you. Please drop your email in the comments or send me a message so that we can add you to our mailing list and keep you updated. Real quick, Tima is saying, is there an article or a website that you would recommend that you can recommend to parents, Randy?
Send me an email and I will send you one.
Okay, so if you reach out to him, he will send you an email. We'll make sure that we put your email address again. Shamia's on it. She'll put your email address in the comments for people as well. I want to encourage you all just to take the words of wisdom, dissect on them, see where you are, see what your needs are as parents. Thank you all so much for tuning in, for spending a Tuesday evening with me. You could be watching any other thing, not any other thing.
Home anywhere else but home, right?
You can be in any other room, but you are in the Dr. Tara room tonight, and I appreciate it so much. As always, as a part of the Dr. Tara community, please let's continue to heal together and support each other. Thank you all so much. I'll see you next Tuesday. Randy, again, thank you so much
for having me. Peace and blessings, everyone.
Yes, thanks. Peace, everybody.